Champions Cup final games. There were 4 of them. I watched 2. I got up at another ungodly hour to watch the games, but I did it. I decided because Munster and Ospreys was essentially, given the Saturday games, a game with nothing to play for in terms of the wider competition, and this game was already in that bucket. So I watched Saracens and Racing, and I watched Toulouse against Gloucester. I watched them at the same time. This game was obviously on before this game, but watched that one and that one delayed. So yeah, it kind of worked out, and I've seen the highlights of the other 2. So we do have our quarterfinal matchups for the Champions Cup for 2019-2020. I'll go over those in a minute as well, but first go through these games, and you guys can let me know your thoughts on the bits that I missed, because like I said, I did watch 2 games at the same time, and the other 2 just 10 minutes or so of highlights. The first one, Munster and Ospreys. Like I said, Munster were still alive before the Saturday games, but by the time the results came through, with the likes of Northampton and Glasgow and whatnot winning, they were already, their fate was already known, that they were out of the Champions Cup for this season, which is not something that happens that often. From what I've seen, Munster generally make it through, but not this year. They went out on a bit of a high with a pretty comfortable win over Ospreys, although, funnily enough, this game actually had a lead change because Ospreys were in front 6-0 for a while. The highlights package I saw, they showed a couple of Ospreys penalties early, 6 or 7 minutes and 13 minutes, so 6-0. And Munster weren't able to get on the board until the half an hour mark. Ospreys even missed one other shot at goal. But yeah, CJ Thunder got us underway for Munster. 31 minutes. There was some quick ball from Munster, which is really what they need in their attacking play, and he powered over for a try. 7 points to 6. That was the lead change. And clearly you can tell from the scoreline it was all one-way traffic from there. So Osprey season didn't get any better with this result. 39 minutes or 40, Archer went over about a metre out, and he got it on the base of the post. So good enough for another 7-pointer. So Munster actually went in 14-6 despite trailing for a good kind of 15-20 minutes of the game. So yeah, 14-6 at halftime, and then second half they just kept picking it up. Murray got his try. It was a sniping dive from the back of the ruck, so good kind of heads-up play from him, which is kind of good news going into a Six Nations campaign. The forwards had gone close, to be fair, so he was the one who just finished it off. Most of that credit goes to the forwards. They missed the conversion 19-6. They had a try chalked off for Rory Scannell. It was an Arnold offload, but he dropped it just over the line, so good spotting for the officials. But it didn't make much difference because Casey got his try in 59 minutes, and it was a nice little kind of snipe step from him to make it 26-6. Ospreys got a yellow card late on. I didn't see what it was for because they didn't bother to show that during the highlights. But then Stander kept things off on 78 minutes. From the back of a scrum. He went through Price, and Price was never going to stand a chance in that situation. 1-on-1 was just under. So, yeah, I guess if you're an Ireland fan, good news that guys like Stander and Murray are getting in the tries. And, 33-6. It's a nice way to finish, although not the overall result that Munster would have wanted. As I said, Osprey season doesn't get any better from this result. Stats are all pretty favourable for Munster. 446 to 196 is the run meters, so very heavy. Possession 65% Munster, territory 75% Munster. Tackling, Munster was making 92 in that game. Ospreys had to make 191, so again, it's just kind of an indication of the way the game was going. Lydiate made 22 out of 24, which is a good effort. Price 11 from 19, which is 8 missed tackles, which is a bit disconcerting. O'Donoghue for Munster, 61 run meters, 1 clean break, and 5 defenders beaten. So pretty good effort from him. But yeah, that was that game. Season done in Europe for those teams. Focus on the Pro 14 from here out. The next one was Saracens against Racing 92. Pretty important game for Saracens in the context that they are getting relegated at the end of the year. This is their only chance to get their hands on a trophy, so they might as well go full bore. It's kind of been an interesting one because as the season's got on, they got docked points and then their focus shifted to the Premiership. Now that they're already getting relegated, then the focus kind of shifts back to Europe. Is it too little too late? Well, they scraped through. 27 points to 24. They'll be pretty happy with the win given the circumstances, but you can see there is some red on that board. It started off pretty well for them. Itoje got a try, on like 2 minutes. Kind of one phase after a line-out move, made it 7-0. Concerning, Billy Vunipola went off with a suspected broken arm. I haven't seen if that's been confirmed or not. But Will Skelton came on after about 5 minutes, and Billy V was part of that initial line-out move that led to the try. So you can't kind of underestimate his impact on the team. So that was disappointing. He's always got trouble with his arms, that guy. Aribarin gets yellow carded for a deliberate knock-on on about 10 minutes. And there's no penalty try because they decided there was enough cover, but it leads to Mako Vunipola's try on 11 minutes, so pretty much a minute later it's a maul. And it took a moment for him to get it down, but he got it down. So that makes it 14-0 and 7-0 during the yellow card. However, Vakatawa, who was pretty bloody good in the first half, the commentators actually mentioned he was a bit quieter in the second, but in the first half he was good. He had a try basically from a high ball. They checked that there wasn't a knock on in the lead up, but there wasn't. And it was a pretty simple try from him. High ball, guys contest it, it bounces to him, and he goes in for a try. So 14 points to 7. And Saracens took a penalty on 18, so it's 17-7. And that's how the yellow card ended. So it's 10 points to 7. So Saracens win the yellow card by 3 points, which is not a whole hell of a lot. 27 minutes. Dupisho gets a try. He intercepts it on the right wing. All Duncan Taylor can do is kind of just shepherd him to make sure he doesn't score too near the sticks. He has to kind of score it reasonably wide, but they still get it. The conversion, so it's 17-14. And then on half an hour, Vakatawa again, it starts from a midfield scrum. I think Russell had a good fend in the build-up, and then Racing go into the lead. They convert the try, 21 points to 17. After the start of the game, that seemed very unlikely because Saracens were just all over them. Racing were a man down, but then they came back, really get the momentum. And to make matters worse, just before half-time, Skelton gets red carded for a high shot to the head. The TMO has a chat about it for a while, but eventually they decide that it's contact with his chin, I think they said, and he's gone. So Aribarin takes a penalty shot just before half-time, but it's short. So that's how it goes in with it still pretty close, but the fact that Saracens have got a man down, they're already missing Billy V. It looks like it's going to be a pretty tough day at the office. But then second half, Toje scores his second try, man. 49 minutes, they had advantage. Barrett kicked it over to Duncan Taylor again. There was like an offload, and Toje ends up being the guy who gets the ball, so it's 24 apiece. There's a yellow card for a late hit on Farrell. I forget who it was, but Saracens missed the penalty. So it's still 24 all, which doesn't see Saracens through at that point. 72 minutes, there's a carried back call, which the TMO looks at for ages because you're not sure if Racing have carried it back or if it's been kicked into the end goal and then they've just forced it, but they decided it's carried back. So Saracens got a chance to attack. They go through a TMO review, but there's no try. Eventually, though, they do give Saracens the penalty from that, so it's 27-24. Racing at the end go about 15 phases in the last 2 minutes, but eventually they knock it on. Saracens hold on for the win 27-24 despite playing half the game with a man down. So interesting game, kind of swung from side to side in terms of the momentum. The stats were pretty even, 337 to 366 as the run meters for each team respectively. Saracens slightly edged the possession 56 and territory a bit more comfortably 60. Vakatawa had 86 run meters and 9 defenders beaten. So he was on fire, but like I said, most of that was in the first half, and Brad Barrett had 16 out of 17 tackles, which is a pretty good effort for a guy in the midfield, plus his kicking game was on song as well. So yeah, against all odds, with all the negative press around them, Saracens find a way to get that one done. Got to commend them for that, if nothing else. The next one, Montpellier, Connacht. This is a hell of a game as well. It was not much on the line, and it seemed like it was going to blow out. I actually saw the scoreline before I saw the game, so this one I managed to watch the highlights without knowing the score. This one I was spoiled to. I was like, oh, Montpellier must have done it probably pretty straightforward, but it wasn't. They did get the first try to Chinachava. It was all forwards, 7-0. He's a big Georgian guy, so I kind of guess that makes sense. And then in Gundebi, yes. He got a break, had like a step. It was pretty poor defence from Connacht. Made it 14-0. And he got another one not that long later. It all came from kind of a Pollard kick and a Rayak follow-up with Hussein managing to secure the ball. And then he was the man who managed to go over, was in Gandabi. Someone give me the good pronunciation. The commentators did a decent job. So at that point, it's 21-0. It's looking pretty comfortable for Montpellier at home. Final way to see off this Champions Cup season. But then the final 10 minutes of that half, man, the Connacht come alive. Healy gets the first one. It's on the left wing. I realise I've forgotten to fill in the board with all those try scorers. Hold on just a tick. Realised I left Kieran Marmian's name off the board. I've made a spelling mistake and I wiped the board, but I don't like to write over because I used a wet cloth to clean the board, and if you write on the wet, it doesn't do good, so I waited for it to dry, but apparently I forgot to fill in the gaps. Yeah, Healy gets his try. Left wing, Godwin's pass and draw, 21-7. And then it's Porch down the right wing. There's kind of no room. I don't know how he does it. He's about as close to the whitewash as you can get without going into touch. And he's just like, the hell with it, I'm going for it. And he goes for it, and he just gets there. There's a flying tackle that comes in from him, but he gets airborne, and he puts the ball down. Probably try of the match, that one. That one was fabulous. And then right before halftime, as if they can't stop scoring, Aki, great offload to Marmian, makes it 21 apiece. So out of nowhere, Connacht have been from 3 tries down to dead even at halftime. Second half, Connacht actually go in front. They pick up where they left off. Godwin gets a try, goes through a gap. Kind of Serfontaine kind of jumped out of line a little bit early from what I could see from the highlights. 21-26 because they missed the conversion, but then Rayak gets a try, first of his 2 from a Hussein kick. Healy with the bounce, man, he just lost his footing. The bounce was cruel for him. Very good bounce if you're a Montpellier fan. And that put Montpellier back in front 28-26. Connacht kicked the penalty to go back in front of 57 to make it 29-28, but then Rayak right on 77 minutes down the left wing with advantage after Pollard had done a nice little break. And yeah, that made it 35 points to 21. To be fair, he did pretty well to catch that ball because he was out on the wing. They passed it to him, but it was well above his head, and he managed to drag it in just to go over the line. So, yeah. 79 minutes, there's a yellow card pretty much from the kickoff. There was a chance for Connacht. They went like 4 minutes into added time, but weren't able to get a final score. So, yeah, 35-29 is the way it finished. Both teams go out with their heads held high based on that game. Stats, possession was pretty even, 52-48 in Montpellier's favour. Likewise, the territory, 51-49. Tackling percentages were 90 to Montpellier and 77 to Connacht, which is probably a pretty big difference, making it pretty disappointing if you're a Connacht fan in that regard. Both teams made 177 tackles, which is incredible. Both made 177, but Montpellier missed 20, whereas Connacht missed 47. That's according to ESPN. So, Nganda got 10 defenders beaten, which is pretty good. Butler for Connacht had 18 out of 18. So, yeah. Fun game, even if it wasn't all that kind of meaningful. And the last one, Toulouse against Gloucester. Gloucester knew they needed to go in and get a big win. They started okay. Reece Zammit got a try from a cross kick early, made it 7-0. He hurt himself a bit later, so he's gone off. I haven't seen the news as to whether he is just got a dead leg or whether it's something more serious, but he looked pretty sore. Toulouse, though, got one from Takori pretty soon after. Superb line-out maul, about as good as you'll see it, kind of textbook stuff, 7 points apiece. Ntamak got his first try. Great Dupont fend and a break, and Dupont had a really good game. That guy should be the starting guy for France. 14-7. 26 minutes. Ramos gets an intercept. He goes about 80 metres with Gloucester hot on attack, but Reece Zammit manages to chase him down. That guy's got some wheels. Some of the other guys chasing Ramos weren't catching him, but Reece Zammit sure enough managed it. 29 minutes. Gloucester get a yellow card. It's Evans. I think it's for kind of a shirt pull on Colby after a Ramos break. But then 34 minutes, and Ntamak gets his second try. It's a good step. He goes through. Colby went close in the build-up, 21 points to 7. That's when Reece Zammit went off, about 38 minutes. Yellow card was over, so 7 points to 0 for Toulouse, kind of pretty standard during that yellow card period. But before halftime, Gloucester kind of make a game on, back again with Woodward getting his try just before halftime, 39 minutes. Evans had a kind of dummy and pass that made it 21-14. So halftime, still not looking good if you're a Gloucester fan at that point, but you're not dead and buried. Second half, however, there's a bit of handbags on like 50 minutes. So the guys were fired up. 51, Colby goes down the left wing. Eventually, it's Marchand who gets the try on 52. That makes it 28-14. Bailly gets one on 62 minutes. He just picks up the ball from a ruck and kind of falls over the line. The one that, if any of us were there, we probably could have scored, he says kind of optimistically. 35-14. 67 minutes, handbags again. And this time both sides get a yellow card for those handbags. The ref had enough. And, yeah. Is that it? Toulouse put some pressure on at the end because they wanted to get one more try to get their points difference above, I think it's Clermont's, but they couldn't get it done. They managed to get held out. So, yeah. Stick where they are. Run meters, 468 to 322. Position, pretty much even. Gloucester actually had slightly more, 54 territory and 51 possession. Tackling, Gloucester was 78%, which is again a bit poor. Toulouse at 85. Penalties conceded, Gloucester 16 to Toulouse's 8. That's a bit of a difference as well. Ramos and Thorley, so one from each side, both had 134 run meters. Thorley had 5 defenders beaten, 4 clean breaks. Dupont had 74 run meters, 5 defenders beaten. So like I said, that guy's in phenomenal form. But yeah, Toulouse get it done, but not as much as they would have wanted. Gloucester fail in their attempt to catch up Northampton, so that is the end of the road for them. They are close, but not quite enough. So where does this line things up? It means we've got 3 French teams, 3 English teams, and 2 teams from the Pro 14. From memory, last year the Pro 14 was stacked in the quarterfinals, but not so this year. It means first quarterfinal, Clermont against Racing 92. That should be a really good one. All French affair. Both 2 pretty attacking teams to watch, so that should be a fun game. Toulouse against Ulster. That one, Ulster are a surprise package in terms of how good they are away from home. So if they can pick things up, I wouldn't doubt them on their day. But Toulouse at home are looking like a pretty bloody good team. So that will be a very hard one. Ulster will go into that one as underdogs. Exeter against Northampton. So that's an all-premiership affair. That one could have a bit of handbags as well. You feel like at Sandy Park, Exeter will be huge favourites, but it could be a pretty brutal one depending on how the weather goes. And then the last one, I don't know how you're feeling if you're a Leinster fan, but Leinster get Saracens. So it's last year's final. You think if you're the top seed, you kind of get the easy run. But in this case, you get the defending champions who just have been rotating their squad throughout the year. So Leinster Saracens is probably the game of that round to watch. We've got to wait till April now, so it's going to be quite some time. But it will be fascinating. Right, I got to go put my kids to bed. Sorry if that was a little bit rushed at the end, although at 20 minutes, that's hardly rushed. You guys let me know your thoughts on the games. Help me out with some of the pronunciation if I did mess that up. But yeah, early night tonight for me. After 2 days of kind of 4 something in the morning to watch Champions Cup. We get a break for a little bit, and then Six Nations is not too far away, guys. You guys let me know your thoughts on these games. As always, drop us a like. If you liked me getting up at 4 a.m. to watch rugby, because I do. Give myself a like. Anyway, guys, I will talk to you again soon. See you later.